Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to create a mobile first responsive website, and we're going to create a restaurant website called Sushi Bar. Um, it's going to have this landing page with the title, and it's going to have this nav slider here. So if you click on it, it'll show you these navigation links, and we'll have a menu which will use tabs. And I have a whole video on tabs that goes into detail, which I'll link in the description below. And then we just have some basic restaurant information like address, business hours, and contact. So we're going to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we're going to be using CSS media queries because it is fully responsive. It is built with mobile first design in mind. And if you click on one of these links, it'll close this nav and it'll take you to the menu. And this would be very useful, especially when you have a lot more content for your website, which most restaurants would obviously would. So I have Visual Studio Code here, and I have about 5 files plus an images folder. And I have this landing page image, which I'll show you guys how to grab that. So if we go to pixels.com and type in restaurant, it is going to be right here. I'll put the link in the description below. And when you guys download it, make sure you just download it by 1920 by 1080, whatever you guys want. It's just the best resolution. So let me close out of this, put that here, and let's get started. So I just saved it in a folder called images, and you guys can see it right here. It's going to be our landing page background. So in our HTML, we're going to create the boilerplate. So I'll do Shift 1, which emit abbreviation will come up, and it'll generate the HTML boilerplate. So the title will just be Sushi Bar, and then let's open this with Live Server. If you guys don't have this extension, you'll want to download it. It's just called Live Server. Okay, so we're going to have a main tag. Inside the main tag will be everything. So we'll have a section which will give an ID of landing page. And inside the section, we're going to have the restaurant title. So we'll give a header with an H2, call it Sushi Bar. And this black background here is to offset the background overpowering the title. So let's give the header a class of title background. And let's give the H2 a class of title. Title's fine. And then that's it for that. We are going to also include the 3-line button right here. So the way we can do that is go above the header, and we're going to create a div container. So we're going to call this landing. Let's call it just landing page button. Or actually, you know what? Let's call it Nav Slider. Okay, we'll give it a class of that. And then inside here, we're going to create 3 divs with the class of line and multiply by 3. So in there, we can apply the styling for each line. And then right below this landing page section, we're going to have a section for the nav slider. So whenever you click on it, we'll have something go across the screen. So let's give this a class of nav slider section. And then we'll include the content in there after, because I want you guys to see what's going on so far with the nav slider, the button itself. So we'll create the CSS for that so you guys can see how that's being created. And then we'll come back and create the nav slider section HTML. So I'm going to have a link here times 2, since I have 2 CSS files and 2 JS files. I just wanted to separate it out so you guys can see what's going on and kind of break it down into smaller chunks. So the first one's going to be CSS, and the second one will be tabs.css. And then I'm going to include the script files as well. So we'll do script, source, we'll do main.js, script source again, tabs.js. Okay, so in the main.css, I'm going to give a comment here saying landing page. And first thing we want to do is include the background image. So we have a class here, ID here, called landing page. So for landing page ID, we're going to say we have a background image, specify the URL, and it's going to be images landing page 1.jpg. Okay, and then we want to have the image cover the whole page, so the vertical height. So for the background size, we're going to say cover, and then the height, we're going to say 100 VH, vertical height. And we need to get rid of these margins and padding in the body. And also for the H2, we need to get rid of the margin. There we go. That's also, just to keep it safe, we don't want the background to repeat. So we'll say background repeat, no repeat. Okay, so that's it for the background. And then we'll go on to the header H2. Let's go to H2 first. So we'll do title, text align center, and then let's do color of D0D, no, D0D, 3D4. Okay, and then we want to give this a font size, increase it. Let's do 2M. Okay, that's fine for now. And then we want to bring it down. So before, I don't want to do that here. I want to do this in the title background. So the title background, we are going to give a background, and it's just going to be 070707. And then we're going to do width, and we're going to say fit content. We're going to do margin of auto, and then we're going to say padding, give the padding of 10 pixels. All right, guys, we want to bring down the sushi bar background and title down. But the way we're going to do that, before we do that, we're going to create the button itself, the 3-line button. So we're going to come down here. We gave it a class of Nav Slider. Yep, and let's just give a comment here saying Nav Slider. Okay, in the Nav Slider, we have a class that we're going to, oh, that's the container, but let's create the lines first. So the lines are gonna have a padding of 5 pixels. And before that, let's give it a background. And let's do EEE. Okay, and let's give the margin of 5 pixels. Okay, and then the width, let's do 30 pixels. And let's bring down the margin a little bit. Let's try 2. Okay, and you see how the margin is bringing down, the first line is bringing the margin down. So we're going to get rid of the first line margin. So we're going to do line and child 1, and we're going to say margin top is 0. There you go. Now the nav slider is a container, so we're going to say padding, and let's do 15 pixels. There we go. So we have that. I'm going to see if I can make this a little thinner. Instead of using padding, let's use height. So we'll do 3 pixels. That looks better. Okay. So let's also add a cursor of pointer here. And then we can create the section for the line container now. And then after that, we'll create the CSS animations. You guys will see how that's being created. So in the section, we're going to have a background. So we'll get to that after. But inside the section, we're going to have another section for the nav links. Actually, yes, we're going to need to do that. And then we're going to have an unordered list, and then 2 LIs with an A tag in between. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Okay, so in the A tag, we're going to have a menu, and let's say href is menu, hashtag menu, which will point to this section. And this is hashtag restaurant info. So inside the unordered list, we have those nav links, and we're going to give this section a class of nav links. So let's go to the CSS. Oh, also before that, let's create a button here. Just give it a capital X, give it a class of nav close, let's say close nav slider. Okay, so that's it for that section. And let's go and apply the styling to it. So I'm going to give a comment here, nav slider section. And then nav slider section. We're going to give this a background of RGBA 000 with some opacity of 0.8. And then we're going to say position is fixed, top 0 and left 0. Okay, and then we're going to give this a height of 100% and a width of 100%. There we go. And now we can customize the button. And actually in the HTML, I forgot to put restaurant information here. Not a big deal. Okay, so close nav slider. We're going to get rid of the border and the outline. And then we're going to say float right. The background we are going to make transparent. And the color of the button is going to be F1 C4 0F. It's going to be like a yellow. And then let's give this a font size of 1.5 M. And let's give it some padding, 15 pixels. There we go. Okay, so now we have the nav links. So for the nav links, we're going to do this. We're going to use this flex box to display them in the center. So we're going to do display flex, and then we're going to say justify content, center, and then align items, center. And then we're going to give a height of 100%. There we go. And then inside the nav links, we are going to have an li. So we want to, let's give some class name to these. Let's do nav, let's call these nav links. And let's call that section with the nav links class. Let's put a container after the name. So nav links container. Okay, and the nav links class, we will align center, text align center. And actually, we're not going to do that here. We're going to do that within the li. We are going to get rid of the text decoration. Do none. And the color, it's going to be just EEE. And then let's increase the font size. Let's do 1.5 M. Okay. So we need to use the li tags. So we can say nav links container li, and then we can say text align center. And let's give it some padding in between. Okay, perfect. So there we go. We have that. And we need to give two classes to show and hide the nav slider. So we'll have one that says open nav, and then we'll have one to say close nav. Okay, so by default, we're gonna have the section. We're gonna use the transform property and translate X. And by default, we're gonna say it's negative 100%, which will be out of this picture right now. And then what we're gonna do is create a couple keyframes. So the first one will be open nav. And at 100%, we're going to say it's transform, translate X, and we'll do 0% at its default normal state when it would be showing. And then we're going to create another keyframe, and we'll do close nav. At 0%, it's going to be at translate X 0. And then at 100%, we're going to say transform, translate X negative 100% back to hiding. Okay, so let's add the CSS animations here. And in the open nav, we're going to have animation, open nav, and then we're going to say 0.5 seconds forwards, because we want the animation style, that styling to be still present after the animation is done at 100%, even when the keyframes is at 100%. So just so to show you guys, if we add open nav class here, it should slide. And then we'll do the close nav, we'll do animation, close nav, 0.5 seconds forwards, same effect. And let's do open nav, and let's do close nav now. Perfect. So we're going to use JavaScript to toggle those classes back and forth when the button is clicked. So that's it for the landing page. There's nothing else going on. Before we get into the JS, I would like to finish the HTML and CSS. Okay, so below here, we're going to have a menu section with an ID of menu. And then inside, we're going to create this tabs section. So we'll have a section, call it tabs container. And then inside the tabs container, we're going to have another section. And we're going to call this tabs, because this will be the tabs themselves, like the sushi, drinks, appetizers, desserts. So inside here, we're going to have 4 buttons. So we're going to do button, give it a class of tab header, and multiply by 4. And then we'll say sushi, drinks, and then appetizers and desserts. Okay, so let's see how that looks. Okay, so, and before I get to the tabs, let's add the actual title. Let's do H2 menu. And I'm going to give this a class of menu title. Okay. So after the tabs, inside the tabs container, we're going to have 4 sections, which are the actual sections for each tab, like the items in each menu. So we're going to give this a class of tab section times 4. Okay, and then we're going to have all these items. So the best way to do that is create a p tag with a span for the prices. So let's say $10 is the first item. And the span is going to have a class of menu price. And then here we're going to say spicy tuna. Hope you guys like sushi. I really love sushi. That's why I picked to do this. I'm going to copy and paste that. Change this to 2. Just copy what's in the existing menu. The reason I chose tabs here is because I see that it's very popular, especially on the mobile side, and it still looks really good even on the desktop side. So that's why I chose to go with this. I think a lot of restaurants probably use like custom-made PDFs or something like that to show their menu. But you know, for those of us that don't have any design skills or stuff like that and keep it simple, this gets a job done. So that's for the first section. It's going to look very weird right now. So the second section, and let's give each one of these sections an ID. We'll just do tab section -1, and I'm going to copy and paste that for each one. And we're going to need to use these IDs in the JavaScript later to change them. Okay, so in the second section, we have drinks. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'll probably keep the prices the same just to save some time. Okay, so for the drinks, and these are just drinks that I've always seen. Just pick something out of the blue. Okay, 2 more. Bear with me here. Okay, so these are appetizers. And then we'll have desserts. In the desserts menu, I kept short purpose. Okay, I'm going to delete these last two. Okay, so that's it for that. And these sections are going to have one of two classes. Either we're going to do the same thing we did for the Nav Slider, which is show and hide. So we can say show tab, and we can say hide tab. So we're going to create these two. The first one will be show tab by default, and the others will be hide. Okay, so that's it for the HTML of this section. So let's go into the CSS and give it some styling. So create a menu. So some of the tabs, CSS is going to be in the tabs file, just to keep it separate so you guys kind of understand what's going on and it's easier to read. So in the H2, we gave a class of menu title. And before I do give that styling, let's give a background color to this. So give an ID of menu, background. The background is just going to be, let's see here, let's do 070707. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then let's see here. Actually, sorry guys, I just want to make sure I keep it consistent. Let's do 000. Okay. And then in the menu title, let's change the color and let's do EEE. Actually, let's do D0, D3, D4. Okay, and then I'm going to do text align center. I hate when I save it and it goes to the top of the file. Okay, so we're going to do a padding, and we're going to say 25 pixels. Let's see if that, yeah, okay, perfect. And let's increase the font size of this to 1.5 em. Keep it consistent with everything else. That didn't get really big actually. Let's do 2. Okay, better. So that's it for the menu styling. Let's navigate into the tabs.css, and let's start out with the tabs container. So the tabs container, it's just we're gonna give this a width of 90%. And for now, let's give it a border of 1 pixel, solid EEE, just to see what's going on. We're going to remove that after. And then we have a tab header section. So let's give the styling to the buttons. So we're going to do border, none. And then after the border, we're going to say outline, none. We're going to make the background transparent. And let's see how that looks. And you guys can't see that. Let's give the color EEE. Perfect. And let's increase the padding. Let's give it some padding and increase the font size. So we'll do 6 pixels by 12 pixels. Font size of 1em. Okay, so let's remove this border. We actually don't need it. And okay, and then we're going to create a class called active tab, which will let us know, which will give a border styling. So we're going to override this one in tab header. So we're going to say 1 pixel solid EEE important. And then we don't want the bottom border, and you guys will see why. Because we're gonna use the tab section which will also have a border. So let's say by default, the sushi tab will have an active tab class. And I forgot one thing. In the tabs container, let's do a margin of auto. Okay, and now let's do the tab section. In the tab section, let's show you guys the border. Solid EEE. Okay, and let's do hide tab and show tab. So hide tab will just be display none, and show tab will be display block. Okay, so the only one tab is showing now, and we need to add some, let's see, padding to the bottom. So if we do padding bottom 20 pixels, should give it some space. Okay, so we need to change the color of the element p tag and the span inside the sections. So we have so the p tag, we're just gonna individually, do we have other p tags? No, we don't. Yeah, we're just gonna default go by the p tag and not give it a class. So we can do p color EEE, and there we go. And let's give this a padding. No, we don't want to give it a padding here. We want to give a padding inside tabs section. So we'll do padding. Let's do 15 pixels. Ooh. Okay. So that looks better. And then we have a menu price class. So we want to align the prices to the right. So we can just do float right. And I'll simply just make it look like that, which looks way better. And we can increase the size of the font. So we can do 1.1M. See how that looks. Yeah, that looks better. Yeah, that looks fine. For now, we can always change it. And inside the tab header, we want to put cursor pointer, because we want the user to know that they can switch between each of these tabs. So that's it for that. All we got to do now is just apply the JavaScript, and we're probably going to apply some CSS media queries to decrease the font size as the screen gets small. This is pretty responsive without even adding any media queries. So that's really good. It makes your life easier. And of course, the website's pretty simple right now. But when you guys see the menu and the bottom, the last section, you guys will see some more responsive media queries. So get a taste of what it looks like. Okay, so let's add the last section. And this is going to be called, we'll give this an ID of restaurant info, and we're going to give it an H2. Actually, so these are going to have each individual, so we're going to give 3 individual sections. So we're going to have section 3. Oh, not a class of 3 times 3. Inside each section, we can give this a class of address content. We can give this a class of business hours. And the last one, we can just give it a class of contact content. Okay, so inside this first section, we're going to give it an H2, say address, and then we're going to have 2 p tags. Pretty simple. And we're going to give the p tags a class of address. Okay, so we'll just say 1234 Restaurant Street, and we'll say it's in Chicago because I love Chicago. So, inside of this section, we're gonna give it an H2 of business hours, and we'll also create two p tags. Should have given it a class, but class will say hours. And let me show you guys how this is actually responsive. I probably didn't get to. So on a desktop site, we want it to be laid out like this. But as the screen gets smaller, we want it to be stacked on top, especially for the mobile. And we're also going to be using CSS Grid for that. So you guys will get a taste of how that works if you guys aren't familiar with that. So inside of hours, we will say Monday through Friday. And I just randomly chose these hours. Doesn't really matter. 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. And then Saturday, Sunday, 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. Kind of give it an upscale life here with the restaurant on the weekends. Okay. All right, so the last thing is a contact H2 again, and then pickup, and then we'll just have one p tag. We'll say call us 1 2 3 3 2 1 1 2 3 4, and let's just give this a class of contact. Let's just do phone. Okay, so let's come down here, create a comment saying restaurant information and the ID of restaurant info. We're going to give this a background of 070707. Now we can come here, and yeah, so there looks like to be a margin on the bottom. Let me see what's causing that. Let's see if it's this. No, it's something else that's causing it. It's probably the H2, or it could be the P tag. Let's see if it's a P tag causing the margin. Yep, it's a P tag. So we don't want that to happen. We'll get rid of that margin with the class that I gave here. Okay, so the H2s, let's see, did I give anything for them? We have several H2s, so let's give this a class of restaurant info title, and let's share them. Okay, so restaurant info title, and let's make the color EEE. Actually, let's do D3 CA C8, and let's do text align center. Okay, so for the P tags, so we gave them each their own class, but a lot of the content is going to be shared. So address, content, and then business hours. I think I just called it hours. Let me just make sure. Yeah. So we want the size to be a little bit smaller than 2M. Let's do 1.1M. I think we're gonna have to do important here to override. No, let's see, why is that? Maybe that's just actually the true size. Let me see if it's, yeah, That's the true size. So let's do 1M. Okay. Okay, so let's center it. Text align center. And we're gonna do the same thing for phone, except I need to get rid of that bottom margin. So we're gonna say margin bottom 0, and then copy and paste these things. Okay. So we do want to add padding. So we could say padding in the restaurant info, give it 20 pixels so that the bottom is not touching the very end. And let's actually add a little bit more. Let's add some spacing between the address, business hours, and pickup. So the best way we could do that is say address content and hours. So address content. Actually, this should not be address content. This should just be address. Okay. So address content. And then we also want to do business hours. We'll do a padding. Let's try 20. Let's try maybe a little bit too much. Okay, 10. And I think I need to add the padding also to the content as well. Much better. Okay, so as you guys can see, for a mobile site, this is pretty, it's pretty decent. Everything's viewable. Nothing too fancy, but gets the job done. Okay, so the next thing. So the first thing, we'll come back to the CSS responsive queries later. Let's start back from the top. And let's create the JS. Let's create the JS code. So first we're going to handle the Nav Slider. So I have two JS files, tabs and main, as I said earlier. In the main, we're going to have a open nav click. And we're going to say document. Let's see, what did I give the Nav Slider as a class? I gave the div. So document.query selector nav slider. So .nav slider. And then we're gonna also grab the close. So close nav click is equal to document close nav slider. So document.query selector close nav slider. Okay, so in the open nav click, we can add a onClick event and set that equal to the anonymous function. Inside the function, we're gonna just simply place the open nav class. So we're gonna place it in the nav slider section. So we can say, and actually saying document many times, let's do nav slider section is equal to document.query selector, and it's going to be .nav slider section. And simply, all we're going to do here is add, say class list.add open nav. So if I click on this, okay, let's see if I named it open nav. Oh, yep, I gave it the wrong. Okay, let's try it now. There we go. And the same thing for close nav click dot on click equal to function and nav slider section dot class list and So here we need to remove open nav, and then we need to add the close nav. Oh, close nav. So let's see if we close that. There we go. So now if we opened it for a second time, this close nav would still exist and it would not open because the close nav is there. So what we need to do is by default, even if it's not there, just give the remove function of close nav. So now if we open it, close it, open it, the X button, let's give it a cursor, a pointer. Let's see, what did I close nav slider? Let's see, is this the, let me see where the button is called, close nav slider. So here, let's give this a cursor pointer. That way the user knows it's something they can click on. Okay, so that's it for the landing page. Let's go into the tabs. So we're going to work on that in the tabs.js. In the tabs, we're going to have a tab header. And then we're going to say document dot. Okay, so one thing I need to add in the HTML for the tab header is we need to give these some data attributes. Because when the user clicks, we won't know exactly what tab they're on, right? So we want to give them a data tab attribute. Inside there, we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll be able to grab this in the JS so that we can tell what tab that they clicked on. And the active tab class will let us know what tab we're currently on. And these data tab numbers will correspond to these ID numbers. So that way we'll be able to write generic functions and not have to write a line for each section. So document dot query selector all, because we want, there's 4 tab headers, right? Oh yeah, 4. So we want to grab all the classes, and then what we're going to do is say tab header, and then we can say tab header dot for each. Inside the for each, we're going to use an arrow function, which is just a shorthand function if you guys aren't familiar with ES6. And we're going to give a parameter button in the function, and then open and close brackets. And then we're going to say button, button on click is equal to function. Inside here, we're going to get, so we're going to call a tab, function. We're going to call a function. We're going to create a function. So let's say change tab. We're not going to pass anything in there. We're going to say function change tab. Okay. So actually it needs to be like this. Okay. And we don't need to even call this function. We can just simply just say change tab. That'll be fine. So let's say we click on one of these. Let me show you guys. So I'll console, and then drinks. So we get a click here, appetizers click, desserts click, sushi click. So we need to get, the first thing we need to get is the data tab attribute. So we can say let tab number equal to parse int. We just want to make sure it's an integer. And then we're going to say this dot data set dot tab. And then, so if we can console.log this just to make sure we're getting the right thing, right data. So let's see if I click drink, tab undefined data set. Let's see. There we go. So if we click on drinks, appetizers, desserts, we get the corresponding data attribute. So here, we're going to have a switch statement. And we're going to switch with the tab number. So we only have 4 cases. So case 1, break, and I'm just going to copy and paste this. Oh, I better just type it in. Got to deal with all these. Okay, so case 2, case 3, and case 4. And then the default case. Break. So we have the change tab. Instead of saying change tab, let's do change tab header and change. Yeah, because we're going to have another function called change tab section. And let's go ahead and create it. So change tab section. And so it's going to take a couple parameters here. So the first parameter is going to be this. So we're going to just say tab clicked. And then we're going to just say the tab number is what we want. And you guys will see why we need those. So in here, we're going to say change tab section. And then we're going to do tab clicked and tab number. And before we define the function, we're going to do a couple things inside of this function first, which is the purpose of it, which is change tab header. Really, it should be called change tab because it's changing the section as well within here, just calling a different function. But I'll just call it change tab header just to show you guys that first we are changing that tab header, and then we'll call the function called change tab section. So here we're going to say document.getElement by get query selector, and we're going to call active tab. And then what we're going to do is say classless.remove active tab. So that gets rid of that. And then after that, we're going to add the change. We're going to add the we're going to add the data, the tab number to the active tab class, to the new clicked tab header. So we can say document.querySelector. Actually, no, we don't need to do that. We can just say this dot classless dot add, and we're going to say active tab. Perfect. So actually I can show you guys. If we click on this, nothing actually, let's see what's, there's probably some simple error. Class list of null at line 10. Oh, that's why, forgot the dot. So if we click on that, there we go. So simply we can change the tab headers now. So now we just need to change the corresponding tab numbers, tab sections, which we can do now. So the tab clicked is going to be not tab clicked. We're going to say this to all of them because we want to click get the tab number. Not the tab number. We want to get that section, the tab header that they called. So tab clicked and tab number, right? So we're going to say let new tabs display new section equal to document.getElement by ID tab section concatenate, and there's going to be a dash concatenate with tab number. Okay, so we have the tab number and we want to hide the current tab section. So the way we can do that is say document dot get query selector, and we want to grab show tab class dot classlist dot remove, and we're going to remove show tab, and then we're going to say document let's see, display. Actually, I don't like the name that way that I named the variable because we're not really displaying it yet. So new section, and then we're going to say new section dot classlist dot add show tab. But before we add that, we need to remove hide tab. So we can say new section dot classlist dot remove hide dash tab. Okay, so let's see. That should be it. I need to also hide the current tab. I forgot about that. So that's why this should not be tab clicked. This should be current tab. Sorry about that, guys. Current tab. So the first thing we want to do is say current tab dot classlist dot remove show tab, and that's what I was actually doing here with show tab, but that's okay. We could do it both ways. I'm sure I missed something. Maybe I have the wrong. Yeah, we should be able to do it both ways, guys, but that's the reason why I just passed on current tab, because we already have that set, whatever the clicked tag is. So let's see if we do that. It's still messing up here. Let's see. So we have the current tab. Okay, so we're not getting the current tab section. We are just getting the, that's right. Okay, so we're getting the current tab. So I should remove it. Okay, let me see here. This is why it's wrong. This, okay, new section is not right. So tab number, we're getting the current tab number, right? No, sorry, we're not getting the current tab number. We're getting the, excuse me, I'm just gonna cut all this out. Hey guys, so sorry about the confusion. We're getting, the tab number is being passed of the newly clicked tab header. So that's right, we're displaying it, removing the hide tab and adding show tab. But what we need to do is remove the current show tab. So I had done that. So document.getQuerySelector .show tab .classlist .remove show tab. And actually, let's set it into a variable because we need to add hide tab to it, hide tab. So we can say current tab. We actually don't need that first parameter now that I think about it. So current tab is equal to document.querySelector show tab. And now I can just simply remove all this, replace it with current tab, and current tab dot classlist dot add hide tab. Okay, so we don't need this. So after I remove that, okay, so let's see here. Now we go, and I spelled martini wrong, I realize that. But now our tabs is fully functional. And as you guys can see, it's pretty responsive, which is perfect. And of course, we'll test the mobile side just to make sure you guys can see some of the different screen sizes and see how that's working. I'm just gonna quickly fix this spelling because it's kind of bothering me. Martini. Okay. So now we're gonna go on to, so let me show you guys. I'm gonna right click inspect. I'm gonna toggle this, and I'm gonna, for dock side, I'm gonna dock out into a separate window, just so it's easier to see. Okay, so on a, let's say, iPhone X, pretty popular phone, the Nav Slider is working. And I forgot to do one thing for you guys. So when you click on this, it's not going to close the actual menu. And I mentioned earlier that I would take care of that. So in the main.js, say, okay, so in our A tags, okay, so let's grab the Nav Links class. So we can say Nav Links is equal to document.querySelector. And then we'll say Nav Links. Okay, so inside the Nav Links, we're gonna also, oh, and not Nav Query Selector, we wanna grab all of them since there's 2 links. So we're gonna do for each, and then we're gonna use ES6, so we're gonna use an arrow function. We're gonna say link inside. Okay, so inside the link, link.onClick, we're gonna say close nav click. Probably not the right, proper naming. Just so that it's proper practice, guys. I'm gonna get rid of this click to the variable. We're just gonna say open and close nav, give it more actionable name to it. So close nav. Yeah, that's it. So let's say I open this. Let's see what happened. Oh, I forgot. Open nav. Oh. Okay, so let's see. That opens, goes to menu, and didn't close. Let me see why that it didn't close. Did it? No errors. Close nav. Oh, I can't just give it close nav as a function. No, we need to say, so what we need to do is nav, so we're gonna create a function, call it close nav slider. And inside this function, we're gonna do the same thing, but we're making it generic so that we don't have to do this multiple times. So instead of me doing this here, I can just simply get rid of this function, and I can just say close nav slider. Don't have to pass anything. Same thing with that. So here, click on menu, it closes. Same thing with restaurant info. Perfect. So we have drinks, appetizers, boom. Everything is pretty responsive. So now, last thing I want to show you guys is the CSS media queries for this last section. So let's go into main, and let's do add media, screen, and we're going to say we only want this to be stacked up until 768 pixels, which is a fairly common width to start adjusting for. And we could always go into a lot of detail, probably go smaller too. But for now, let's just keep it like this. So address content will have a border right of 1 pixel, solid EEE. And let's see what's, oh, and no, not max width. We want it 768 pixels or larger. And also, what I forgot to do, I completely forgot, is we need to add CSS grid to this. So to this restaurant, let's see, restaurant info. We could do it, let's not do it within there. I'm going to create another section, and we're going to say class is info container. So this will be a whole container for these sections. Okay, so inside, in the CSS, we'll do info container, display grid, and by default, for the mobile, we're going to use grid template columns, and we're going to say 1 fractional unit. So, meaning it's going to stack on top of each other. So when we get to a larger size, you guys can see here, we'll do info container, and we're going to say grid template columns. We're going to do 1 fractional unit, but 3 times. So we want it next to each other. And let's see, let's make this bigger. There we go. So you guys can see it side by side, and address content and business hours. We'll get the border right. And since there's a padding, I believe that's the issue here. That's causing the, let me see. No, it's not that one. Let me see, why is it causing the lines to not go all the way up? There's got to be, I think it's this. Yeah. So that's actually fine itself. So let's see if we make it smaller. And of course we could probably put more padding, give it more spacing, but that doesn't look horrible. Let's just add some more padding. So here we can say 20. Much better. Now let's go bump it up to 30. And we don't want to do that here. We want to do that within here. So padding 30. And we also want to do the same thing for the contact content. Padding 30. Perfect. So guys, we have a fully responsive website here. This works across many all screens. And the reason I decided to leave it like this is just because it's very common to have these in, like, especially restaurant websites that I've noticed, and it kind of looks, it has a flashy look to it. We have a tabs menu, which is fairly common, especially on the mobile side. I just want to show you some, let's see here, phones, if we were displaying it. And I would say, I guess when it does get smaller, I mean, if you use anything below a iPhone 6, I think it's going to be, yeah. So that doesn't look, so the way I would fix this is just reduce the font size, and it would fix that. So we could create a CSS media query for that. But on the, standard phones, everything looks pretty good, I would say. Galaxy X5, I don't know anyone that uses that. But of course, if I was creating this website, I would definitely make it responsive for everything. Just be professional about it. But yeah, guys, that's what I wanted to show you. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And I'm going to keep making tutorials, and I really love doing this. I hope you guys get value out of this. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.